My name is Theo, and I'm the founder of the Infinite Zero Experience. Right now, it is a virtual school of consciousness, and I have, in the last year, purchased a property where I am also materializing a center for people who want to have a deeply immersive experience. And in this video, we'll be talking about the philosophy, my style, the way I work with people, the trainings I offer, and the kind of people that I like to work with. In 2015, I started apprenticing to become a consciousness development facilitator. And at that time, I had no idea what I was doing. But over the years, as I kept learning more and discovering more things, healing myself, and just going on my journey of learning from different modalities, I started realizing that my own journey and my way of looking at the world is something unique. At the same time, it is something that applies to a lot of people. I started realizing that there are common elements in everyone's journey because I was working with hundreds of people during my apprenticeship. And I kept noticing that there are certain patterns that keep emerging. There are certain techniques that are very powerful. There are certain things I am learning in my own healing, in my own training, that are very powerful. And from that, I started designing trainings initially just as an experiment. And as I started becoming more intentional with it and I started working with people, they started taking shape into very particular trainings. So, what has emerged from my journey are three trainings which I'm offering right now. The first is called Amplify Your Impact. This is the latest training that I have designed, which is specifically for one on one. It's the only one on one training that I offer. The other two trainings that I offer are group based, and they are called Study of Self and Empowering Yourself and Others. Amplify Your Impact, I have designed it from my own personal intention to amplify my impact. During my apprenticeship, which ended in the beginning of 2023, I had been learning, I had been training, I had been healing, and I worked with a lot of people during my apprenticeship. And I also had started my own business where I was working with a few clients on a small scale because I was still experimenting and figuring out exactly what works. After doing that for 2.5 years, it felt natural for me to step into the world and start offering this training to amplify my own impact. And the way I have decided to do that is to work with people who are already making an impact in the world and to help them deepen the quality of their impact. So I don't work with scale, I work with depth, and depth scales. And people who already have scale can amplify their scale by deepening their impact. I designed this training specifically for leaders, coaches, therapists, teachers, influencers, and professionals of any kind who want to deepen the quality of their impact. I have chosen this way of working with people because there are already incredible people making a big impact in the world. And instead of becoming someone who only works directly with people and making an impact in their personal lives, I have chosen to work with people who are making impact in the world because that will help me to amplify the scale and depth of my own impact. And to have that ripple effect, I feel is my most profound way of amplifying my impact in the world. The other two trainings that I offer, empowering yourself and others, is one of them. And the second is study of self. They both happen in groups. And I love working in groups because even when I'm working in groups, I'm working with each person at a very deep level. And by doing this in a group, we all get to learn from each other. So each person does get very high quality, deep attention and work. At the same time, the level at which we are working, there's a lot of things that are common in everyone. Your individual traumas may be different, your life circumstances may be different, but when we go down to those levels of depth, we start realizing that there are a lot of things that each of us shares. And by working in a group, when one person is working, the work is happening on everyone. And I work with very small groups so that I can give each person attention, so that I can have a personal relationship with each person and get to know them at a very deep level and help them at those levels. So, empowering yourself and others is a training I have designed just as an introduction. It's for a very limited time, between 8 to 12 weeks. Even in such a short time, it creates a very deep impact on people's lives. People transform at very deep fundamental levels. At the same time, it's just the beginning, it's just an introduction to what this work looks like. Study of self is my long term offering, which has no definite end. I offer it in 6 month and 12-month terms. And the clients that I have working with me, many of them have been with me for more than 2.5 years now, because that is the level at which we are working. Is there is really no end to this. There's always something new that we are discovering. There's always more to learn. There's always more to work. At the same time, there is no commitment. There is no binding commitment that you have to stay. Some people get what they need in 6 months and they're done. Some people do the 8 week course, they get what they need and they're done. Some people realize that they want to go deeper, that they want to learn more, that they want to keep training. And for them, there is the indefinite option to keep working with me. In all my courses, some of them may have pre recorded videos, some of them have offline work. There are several things that you can do by yourself, but the main thing is working with me. I work with each person individually to help them uncover their blockages, to help them heal their trauma, to help them see what is keeping them from the life that they really want, what is keeping them trapped, how they are creating their own prisons, and how they can use their own power to break out of it. So, in all my trainings, I use some methods, some philosophies that I have developed from my own journey, from my own experience, and learning from some very powerful teachers. I have learned from many teachers, but I have few specific teachers who have gone very deep with. I have apprenticed with one of them. Some of them are not physically in this reality, but I have studied them very deeply and learned immensely from them. And while all of that has influenced me deeply, it has impacted me deeply, I have also got my own unique experience, my own unique teaching, which has helped me to shape these trainings, these methods, and these philosophies. One of them is called Study of Self, which is also the name of the training. the group training that I offer, but it is also a method. So this part of the training deals with the active exploration of your consciousness, of discovering who you are, of intentionally choosing who you want to be, of developing your consciousness. The second aspect is called unschooling the unconscious. This is related to study of self because it also involves exploration. But in this, we go more specifically into discovering what is in your unconscious and in transforming that, healing that, and either neutralizing it or replacing it. So, a lot of techniques out there talk about replacing bad programs with good programs. While I help people do that, I also give them a third option is to create neutral space within themselves, within their unconscious, where we are creating space for creativity, for spontaneity, so that we are not pre-deciding how we want to be in the world, but we get to be spontaneous and creative of how we want to be in the world. So instead of replacing one undesirable program with another program which seems desirable right now, we will just create space within you where you get to be alive in every moment to decide what you do, how you show up. Hmm. What do I mean by a program? A program is any behavior that is predetermined when you're operating in the world. And we have countless programs within us. A lot of them are inherited right at birth. This is what we call genetics, DNA, whatever you want to call it. And not all programs are bad. And beyond good and bad, some programs are just limiting and they need to be evolved, they need to be upgraded. Many programs come from our families, our schools, our culture. Just in general, unconsciously, we are constantly picking up things that are happening around us. Whatever we perceive and do not process consciously is processed by our unconscious and may end up becoming a program if it is repeated regularly. Sometimes we may also intentionally and consciously choose a program which is healthy, but it has an expiration date. Such a program begins as a protection and becomes a prison. It starts as a tool that ends up limiting us at some stage of our lives. So, unschooling the unconscious is about unloading programs that are no longer serving us today, which we may still be believing that they are good because they have helped us immensely. And someday we realize that what was helping us has started limiting us. What has got us where we are today cannot take us any further and is actually blocking us from going further. So, unschooling the unconscious is about discovering these programs that are either classically bad or have started good and become limiting, and either replacing them and evolving them with another program or just creating space for creativity and spontaneity. A lot of people lack this space. They always need that certainty of knowing how to react, of knowing how to respond, of having predetermined morals, of having a, an identity which is good. So, this is something that is different about my teachings is that yes, you can have all of that, and you have another option to start balancing and creating a neutral space that's just for you to be creative and spontaneous, where you can use your power to decide who you want to be and how you want to show up. And this is something I have learned in my own journey because I was regularly seeing teachers telling me what's wrong with me and how I can fix myself. But it was always them telling me what is the right way to do things. The way I work in Unschooling the Unconscious is that I will help people to discover their programs that are limiting them, that are obstructing them. But in most cases, I will not tell them what to do. I will not give them an alternative. Either they come up with the alternative that feels right to them, or we just create space for them to be spontaneous and creative. If I do offer an alternative, it is always a suggestion that needs to be tested, that needs to be experienced before you incorporate it, because I always tell people not to believe me, not to trust what I say, to test it, experience it, make it your own. And while making it your own, I can guide you to see if you are entering into blind spots and not realizing what you're creating. But that is my role, is not to tell you what to do, not to tell you how to live, but to create space for you to figure that out for yourself. The third aspect of my teaching is called consciousness nomadism, which takes from the philosophy or lifestyle of nomadism, of not belonging or not being fixed in one place for more than you need. And it applies this to consciousness. So, this is not a fixed, rigid philosophy with particular principles. It's an experiential philosophy which enables and empowers people to explore any philosophy as any system of belief that they want to explore without needing to belong to it, without needing to get stuck in it, and allowing them to take from it whatever they like, whatever serves them, whatever applies to them, giving them the power to modify it, to customize it, to personalize it to themselves, and to keep moving in the realm of consciousness and to feel home within themselves rather than feeling the need to belong in a particular belief system, a particular culture, a particular nation, or any construct, is to create a feeling of belonging within yourself so that you're not seeking that from something outside yourself. The fourth aspect is called the yoga beyond. And this is a yoga that I wouldn't say I have created it. I have simply defined something that has existed since ancient times. The yoga beyond is the fundamental nature of yoga. Yoga traditionally meant union. Today it means all kinds of things, twisting and contorting yourself in weird ways, stretching yourself, bending yourself. Traditionally, yoga applied all of that to consciousness. It is to stretch your consciousness. It is to bend your mind. It is to go beyond the limits of your rationality, of your imagination, of your consciousness, to unify with that which is beyond you. The way I see it is that it is a it is the meeting between the divine and the human, the divine and the mundane. It it is that space where these two meet, where these two kiss. That is what I call the infinite zero experience. So the yoga beyond is a yogic philosophy to live in this in-between space, to balance polarizing forces such as the divine and the mundane, the light and the dark, chaos and order. It is to become that central space where these energies meet. And in this, I have found pure freedom. Because in this, you do not belong, you do not identify with any particular side. So I do not call myself a light worker, nor am I an agent of darkness or chaos. The way I see myself is a bridge between these two worlds. I do not talk only about manifesting. I also talk about disintegration, dematerializing, because for me, these two forces are complementary. If we swing too much into one, unconsciously we are pulling the other in. My work is to help people consciously hold both these forces within themselves and to become that third neutralizing force. When we are in that neutralizing force, we have the power to use both forces in a balanced way. In this space, we come to see that opposites are the same. In this space, we learn to see how opposites work with each other. And that is the fundamental idea of the yoga beyond, is helping people to reach that level of consciousness where they are unified within themselves, where they are integrated within themselves, where they become a two-way portal between these two forces, between all polarizing forces. It is to reach a level of consciousness where you become change, in contrast to the rest of the spectrum of consciousness, where you are changing, where the circumstances control you. You reach a place where change happens through you instead of happening to you. These four, we can call them pillars of my training, become the container for the infinite zero experience. They help people, as weird as it sounds, to have a container for an infinite experience. There is this too is part of the training, is that while we have this infinite space energy, the zero is the container. That is what makes it powerful, is to be able to hold infinity in a box with a door that can be opened to infinity at all times. What we do is to bring the energy of the infinite and concentrate it into this container without forgetting that there is a world outside this container. We go from being in a prison where we are boxed in to a container that allows us to stay connected to the infinite at all times. It is something that can hold the energy within, yet allow us to feel that which is outside. So we transform our prisons into this container which keeps our connection to the infinite while allowing us to hold the energy of the infinite and embody it and materialize it into the mundane. We become that which can materialize the divine into the mundane. And allowing the mundane to flow back to the divine. One of the things I have learned in my own experience, one of my blind spots was thinking that energy only flows from the divine to the human, from the divine to the mundane. And what I realized in my own yogic experiences was the importance of the feedback loop, the importance of the human flowing back to the divine. For the divine to realize the the limitations of the human, for the divine to have compassion for the human. When it is flowing one way, it tends to become only power without compassion. When the flow returns, when the flow is two ways, which is what I see the infinite as, it is a return to compassion. It is where power and compassion get bridged, where they get unified into a higher force. I want to emphasize the importance of this being a two-way portal because this was one of my own blind spots for a very long time, believing that energy flows only from the divine to the human. And I will explain what I mean by the divine soon, because for me, it's not about religion or God. There's something beyond all of that. But it's not only about energy flowing from the divine to the human. The way I see it is that when we see the world in that way, when we see life in that way, a unidirectional flow, that is when power dynamics become toxic. It is the missing feedback loop from the human to the divine, from the bottom to the top. That is what generates compassion. And this is one of the fundamental aspects of my teaching is the unification of power and compassion. It is when we allow the flow to be two ways, that is when we have the deepest and highest impact. While we do work on incorporating and materializing the divine, it is extremely important to keep the human aspect of us alive because that is where we have compassion for ourselves and for others, is to hold our humanity alive and not allow ourselves to get swung into one polarity, not allow ourselves to get absorbed by the divine, but to hold ourselves in the divine. If you recall and visualize the symbol of the yin yang, you have these two forces meeting each other, and you have that beautiful line in between, and you have the whole circle. Within each side, you also have a dot of the other. You have an aspect of the other. It is to not allow one to consume the other. It is to be able to hold yourself in the other and to hold yourself in the whole, to hold the whole within yourself. And as I said about the divine, for me, it's not something religious. While I used to have great contempt for religion and spirituality, I now have respect for people who believe in religion, who have their religious faith. I see the importance of it. It's just not for me. While I see the importance of religious faith and spiritual practices, and I have respect now for people who have those beliefs, who have that faith, it's just not something, it's just not something for me. What I call the divine is it is that which is perfectly imperfect. This is what is divine for me. Is something that can never be perfect. For me, that which can be perfect has lost its divinity. That which becomes perfect has lost its divinity. That which is only imperfect is too mundane. But that which is perfectly imperfect is the divine. It is that space where the paradox, or what appears to be the paradox, gets unified. This is one of the things I have discovered in my own experience, and I teach the people who are ready for that is that what seems chaotic at one level of consciousness is order at another level of consciousness. Similar to what I was saying before, what seems like a paradox at one level of consciousness, what seems completely incompatible, is one energy at another level of consciousness. What we see as evil and good in this reality is materializing from one energy at a higher dimension. It's just very difficult to imagine that that could be true. But when you are at that level where you can see the the source of that energy, you start realizing why it has this appearance at different levels of consciousness. So I do call them higher and lower because that is the terminology a lot of people are used to. But the way I see it is a spectrum of consciousness. It's all connected, and we are not at a higher level or a lower level. We are the spectrum, and we may be conscious of only one slice of the spectrum, but that doesn't mean that we are not the whole spectrum. And for me, the development of consciousness is realizing you are the spectrum and to be able to be conscious of many slices of the spectrum at the same time, or to become conscious of the whole spectrum at once, which for most people will be too overwhelming, but it is an experience that some people can have. So this is consciousness development, is working within each slice and working on the whole spectrum. So we have to develop each slice because each slice has more capacity. At the same time, we have to remember that there is a whole spectrum here. And for me, that spectrum is pretty infinite. I don't know if there are limits on either side of the spectrum, but even if the spectrum is limited, it is so wide that one lifetime is way too little to deal with the whole spectrum, even if there is a completion there. So within one lifetime, there is endless work in consciousness development. There's always more. So each of these slices along the spectrum is a level of consciousness or a state of consciousness, and each of them can be developed. And some of the most basic labels that I use to create distinct slices are: the first is ground zero, which is a healthy normal, which is something that is lacking from most people's lives. What they consider to be normal is very toxic, is very unhealthy. So the first slice is a healthy normal. The second level or the second slice is what I call self-remembering, which is to not be robotic. That's the most simple way of describing it. Another slice is objective self-perception, where you can see yourself objectively, not from within yourself, but from outside yourself. And in that, you can start redefining yourself. The next slice is objective perception of the world, of the universe, to be able to see what is happening in the world. And the last slice is the beyond, and beyond the beyond, which is basically infinite, where you start seeing everything merge, where everything becomes one, where all the paradoxes and polarities are one energy. Well, they're not one energy, but they are different energies within this portion of consciousness. And to help people develop consciousness in these slices, in these levels, I use the four methods that I described, which is study of self, unschooling the unconscious, consciousness nomadism, and the yoga beyond. And I use a lot of modalities. My modalities are not fixed. I use what applies to a certain person. And if I need to come up with something new, I come up with something new. But I don't have degrees, but I do have a lot of experience in human psychology, philosophy, energy work, shamanism, working with ayahuasca, which is a sacred plant, working in groups, working with individuals, facilitating retreats. I come from a background of software development and cybersecurity, which helps me tremendously in the way I see the world and how all of that relates to consciousness. So I use that a lot in my work, in my understanding of the world, and a lot of other things which I have learned along the way. I use what is needed. I work with what I work with the person. In all of this, whether it is psychology, mysticism, shamanism, whatever you want to call it, there's one more thing I work with, and that is you. And you are the most important ingredient in all of this. I work with you. I work to help you find what works for you and to help you with what you need and what you want. So everything is in my work is centered around you. I will use whatever tools are necessary. I will apply whatever seems like the right thing for the particular moment, but it's all about you until it's not. And then we can go beyond. There's always more. And that is for me a truly infinite experience. Someone who talks about enlightenment as a destination, as a place where things are complete, has not understood anything about enlightenment. They have tried to capture it in a box. They have tried to limit it. They have tried to rationalize it. For me, enlightenment is just a step, it's just a realization about infinity. And then is the work of being and becoming infinite, which is literally infinite.
I was just remembering when, like, how I used to think at the beginning of joining the group about always trying to gauge like where I am in terms of like how much better am I getting, or am I any like you know, we always talk about the mountain and like how far up the mountain am I, or how far up the mountain are you in relation to me, so I can understand where I am, all of that sort of nonsense. And then um how wonderful it is to let go a little bit of that, um and to start thinking like there is no top. I'll never reach the top, and it's not really.
Even if there is a top, the thing is, why do we consider that to be the end? Mountains have peaks, but who
Mm,
says that is the end of the journey? Mountains also have caves. What is the experience of being a mountain? What is the experience of becoming a mountain range? What is the experience of being a valley? All of that. It's like, why do we always fix this one goal, one destination, and think that is it? If I get there, I will get what I need.
yeah, that's so brilliant. You're right, like when you said the caves bit,
Mhm.
I was like, yeah, why don't I ever want to do the caves?
Mhm.
That's such a good point. And then like you said, the experience of becoming the thing, which just isn't even on my radar, like it's just.
It is a protective mechanism because if you have to think at that scope, that level, it's too overwhelming. So when you are at certain levels of consciousness, your only focus is on getting to that destination. The thing is, a lot of people don't want to get to the destination because they feel like if I get there and it's over, my life will be empty again. So they kind of keep sabotaging the destination. The twist here, the key here is to realize that destination is like a tiny dot on the spectrum. So getting there doesn't mean anything. There will always be so much more. The thing is that very few teachers teach at that level. Very few teachers know true infinity and can teach true infinity. Most people will create rationalizations and teach rationalizations, and that is what keeps people in that box. And then they're like, well, if I understand what infinity is, the game is over, and I don't want the game to get over. So let me just keep procrastinating and you know sabotaging unconsciously. If I consciously realize that infinite is truly infinite and there is no end to this game, I will not stop myself from achieving whatever I want to achieve because I know there is always more. And this is not about the achiever mindset. The difference is that the achiever mindset, you never enjoy the achievement and you never enjoy the process. It's only looking at the next achievement. When you're playing a truly infinite game, you enjoy the process because you're not worried about time running out. You enjoy the achievement because you can celebrate whatever you have. And then, when you have truly incorporated that, truly enjoyed it enough, feeling content, then you go to the next challenge, the next game within the infinite game. So people, like they intentionally go slower than they need to. This is not about going fast. The key insight here is realizing that you may be sabotaging because you think that getting what you want will result in feeling what you have been feeling always, feeling the emptiness. People want to achieve things to feel contentment, but they realize that whenever they achieve something, what they feel next is emptiness. And that achievement is never going to give you contentment at that deep level. But when you find that contentment within yourself, then you really enjoy achievements. This is something which I learned from a history of addiction. I used to have, I used to have, and this is something again people don't believe. People think once an addict, you're an addict for life, and there is no such thing as healing. I don't agree with that perspective. There is such a thing as healing. And I used to be, or I used to have a hyper addictive personality, which means that I could get addicted to anything instantly to extreme degrees. For example, when I started smoking, I resisted it for 16 years, but when I tried my first cigarette, I loved it so much that I smoked, I think maybe 5 cigarettes on the first day. And by the first week, I was smoking a pack a day. So that's how I used to be. So I understand addiction very intimately. And I also understand that what it takes to heal addiction. Why did I step into this? So I know addiction deeply, and I know what it is to be addicted to work, to substances, to food, to television, porn, whatever, gambling, like most addictions that people have. I had all of them. And my realization was that it's not something I need to stay away from. Once I healed, I realized that the temptation has disappeared. I feel deep contentment within myself. And now, when I experience something which I actually like food, I deeply enjoy it. Earlier, I used to eat compulsively. Now, I eat and I enjoy what I'm eating. But I never worked on healing my food disorder. I never even considered I had an eating disorder. I healed other things which just automatically resulted in my eating disorder being healed. For me, addiction, depression, anxiety, these are symptoms. And I don't work with symptoms. I work at deeper layers and symptoms disappear. So the same goes with achievement, achieving things. When you're doing it to fulfill that hole within yourself, you will never really enjoy it. Something will always feel missing. But when you have tasted contentment and when you experience lasting contentment, then you truly enjoy whatever is happening. You truly enjoy your achievements. You truly enjoy eating. You truly enjoy the material pleasures. When I bought a toaster, a grill for the first time, I was overjoyed just having a grill. And I did not understand why. That was the first time I realized I am actually enjoying something material. Just the ability to be able to make a grilled cheese sandwich for me was joy. There was joy in that. Earlier, I would have just seen it as a utility or tool and would have paid no attention to it. But seeing that toaster arrive and making my first sandwich was pure joy. And that is, it may seem like a ridiculous example, but the same extends to things like cars, houses, relationships, people, whatever it is. We are always trying to fill these holes, but you will never enjoy it. Enjoy is very different from just being happy. Enjoy is very different from just pure hedonism. To truly enjoy something material, you have to be fully here. You have to be fully present. You have to be fully in the experience. And this is something most people don't have because they're very disconnected. And they cannot be present because it's too painful to be present. But once you've healed the pain, once you've healed the trauma, you can be truly present. You can be fully present, and in that, you will enjoy whatever is happening. So, I am not an uh, I'm not an ascetic. I have not renounced worldly pleasures. I deeply enjoy my worldly pleasures. I love my TV. I love Netflix. I love my car. It's just that I'm not addicted to them anymore. I enjoy them while I'm experiencing them, but I have a lot more in my life. And I have myself beyond my life circumstances. And I just truly enjoy me, just the experience of being alive.
I also was laughing a little bit inside because I had this yesterday I went round Gret's and she ordered a grill, a toaster grill thing. And she was showing it. It was the George Foreman grill. And I was looking at it and I was like, wow, this is so cool. I think I might need to buy one. And she was like, I'm so excited by this. We couldn't stop talking about it. So I understand the grill, the toaster grill thing. It's amazing.
Yeah. But the difference is that I enjoy it to this day. I appreciate it to this day. I think this is something that happens to a lot of people is that when they buy something new, there is that new toy effect. There is that excitement, and then it fizzles out because they realize that that new toy is not giving them the contentment. I love my grill till today. I love my appliances, my technology, every time I'm using it. The difference is, as I specified, lasting contentment. And this is something I became aware of only a couple of weeks ago. I was literally tasting lasting contentment. And it is something I realized I have not experienced for a long time in my life. I would experience contentment and then I would go out of the experience. But now I feel content as a state of being. And in that, again, the level of joy in something is just indescribable because no matter what you're doing, you already have what you need. You're not doing it to fulfill a need. Many people may find this weird, but sometimes I just forget to eat because eating for me used to be something habitual, used to be something to repress my emotions. I would be eating all the time. Now I eat when my body truly feels hungry and I don't think about eating at other times. But I was a person who would be eating all the time. So to not be thinking about eating is for me something very weird. To not be thinking about food until I actually need to, until my body really needs it, is something completely different. And this obviously, applies to many things in life. Like a lot of the times we are thinking about things, we're thinking about our goals, achievements, or how I have to complete this project. Sometimes I imagine once you heal, you just don't think of it. Like I don't think about my work and my goals and my projects all the time. I know what I want, I know where I'm going, but I focus on it when I'm working. The rest of the time, I'm enjoying what I'm doing. A lot of the offerings out there teach people how to cope and manage with their problems, whether it's addiction, depression, anxiety, whatever you want to add to that list. Most of the times, people are giving, or professionals are giving people tricks to either cope, to manage, to dodge, avoid, get around the problem. I work with people to get to the root of the problem and heal it so that you don't have to ever spend any energy or time again in dealing with it, not in coping with it, not in managing it, not in getting around it, not in compartmentalizing, in forgetting about it. It's done so that you can use that energy to do whatever else you want in life. So I've already described my methods, I've described the modalities, and now what I will say is that I can help you with your vision. Maybe you don't have a vision and you don't know where you want to go next. So I can help you to discover your vision, to describe your vision. If you already have a vision, I can help you to refine it, to clarify it, and I can also help you to amplify it. Maybe you're limiting your vision to what you think is possible, to what you think you are capable of. And maybe we can amplify that and take it to the next level. I also help people with the life circumstances if help is required at that level. I help people with the self or the personality, which is the aspect of you with which you operate in this world. And then I help you, that which has a personality, that which is alive, that which is conscious. So these are the four aspects with which I help people is vision, life, self, and you. As I mentioned before, this is an infinite journey. There is no beginning and there is no end. I will join you wherever you are, and we will go from there until wherever you want to go together. And from there, you continue as you please. If you are interested, let's talk and see if we are a good fit to work together. When I work with people, it can be very intense because I go very deep. Many people are not ready for this level of depth and intensity. I am very provocative, and this work is confrontational, meaning you will be confronting parts of you that have been sleeping, that have been repressed, that you have locked away because they were rejected, they were demonized, they were imprisoned. And I have a tendency to rattle the cages, and that can be very uncomfortable and very unsettling. And not everyone is ready to do this kind of work, and that's fine. You may not be ready for it today, and you may be ready for it another time. So respect that. There is no obligation to do this right now. Check in with yourself and feel if you are ready, because there's always only one question: are you ready? Are you ready to face what you need to face, to go where you never want to go, to keep going in the face of obstacles and adversity. To enter the space of the unknown and uncertainty. Are you ready to do what it takes? Are you ready to commit to your dreams? Are you ready to invest in yourself? You only enter when you are ready to playfully play fully. Are you ready? Are you ready?